Hey there, it's Joy Foster, founder of TechPixies, and I am delighted today to be bringing an incredible guest on. So many of you know I have always had coaches. Well, at least I've had coaches for the last 5 or 6 years. So I started having coaches in 2015 for business, life, etc. Of course, I've always had sports coaches because I was on the United States archery team and I've done triathlons and running, etc. But I realized that I needed business coaches and I needed people who could help me navigate how difficult things get at home when you become a successful businesswoman, which is something that happened to me. And I'm joined today by another successful businesswoman who also has been my private coach. And so I'm so excited about this interview, and we've got a lot of great stuff to talk about, including ants and bugs. So you're going to want to stick around for this. She's also a fellow neuro coach. So Hilary, welcome to the show. Give my listeners and my watchers a bit of information about you. You've got an incredible story. So tell us the story.
Well, Joy, first I'm laughing because we're sitting here, we're talking about ants, we're talking about bugs, and people are like, okay, I'm already tuning out. I do not want to hear about gardening. But no, actually, this is gardening of your mind, of your brain to make you that much more successful. So it all ties into you and your success, which is so amazing. So in terms of, how this even came to be is that I've always been very fascinated with psychology, with how the brain works. I went pre-med in school and realized I wasn't meant to be a doctor, but I did love the psychology behind it and kept going with that. And then the tide turned and I really got the bug for entrepreneurship after I was in corporate for over 10 years and loved helping other people reach the pinnacle, like that highest level of success. And the way I define success is your quality of lifestyle. Because when you have that quality, and your quality, my quality, Joy's quality, everyone's quality of lifestyle is different, and you need to be able to define it. And what always stops people from getting to that point are these things that I've coined called bugs, the beliefs underground surfacing. And these are things that sneak up at every little turn. And without an awareness of them, they can sabotage you to such a degree to just keep you at that lower place. And so, after coaching literally thousands of people, running multiple companies, a high tech company in the Silicon Valley, I realized that I wanted to help literally relaunch people into the next phase of their life. And it meant I needed to help people become belief blasters within themselves, this inner size game. So that's where I am today, just really, getting the word out that you too can actually be the impact of change.
Well, and we're both certified neuro coaches through Dr. Shannon Irvin's program. Of course, you had tons of accolades before that in the coaching world. That was my first foray into the coaching world. But one of the things that I love is she talks about ants. So you talk about bugs, she talks about ants. Ants are automatic negative thoughts. They do the same thing. They sabotage you and they really stop you from making progress. And I feel like I remember when the penny dropped and I really started understanding this concept of how our thoughts control our outcomes, right? So it's actually, the outcomes are controlled from within, from the inside. And when I first started understanding this, it just, over about a year ago. So it's now March of 2021. And I would say the first time I started really opening up to the concept of the inside out revolution, that concept, was around Christmas time, 2019. It was such an incredible experience to start to really understand that your inside thoughts have such a huge impact on you. So in the neuro coaching program that we've done with Dr. Shannon, we learn about how to look at a situation, understand the thoughts and emotions that are coming up around that situation, understand that thoughts and emotions repeated over and over again create beliefs. And what I really learned from Dr. Shannon was that you make your decisions out of your beliefs, right? And that sets off a chain of action or inaction, shall we say, and that gives you some kind of result, which is either a result you want or a result you don't want. And so this is a process that we've learned with her, and it's a process that we teach on the Social Media Magic program, because I know I can give everyone the skills they need in the social media space, but if they don't have the confidence to use those skills, if they don't have the self-belief that they are someone that knows how to use social media, then they're not going to actually take action on social media. And you work with women and men who want to build successful businesses. They want to relaunch themselves as entrepreneurs, and they face a lot of the same challenges that the women coming through my program have as well, which is why I thought this would be a great conversation. And in the training that we've had, we would run someone through what's called the mind matrix, or the 4 Rs. And this is something that I teach all the time to our students on Social Media Magic, but it's about recognizing and writing down the thoughts, and then refuting those thoughts, and then reframing those thoughts with evidence, that with truth, that those thoughts are not true. And we talk about that and how that works in our program. But then we also talk about the recording. So listening to that brain prime every single morning, every single night, 67 days in a row. We even have a hashtag TP 67 day challenge, where we really challenge people to commit 67 days to brain priming. So what's interesting to me is when you were coaching me, you were able to identify something that I had not identified for myself. And you recommended that I read the book, The Big Leap. So do you want to talk a little bit about let's talk about what it's like coaching me a little bit, but then also, because I always coach everybody else, but I don't necessarily let everybody else in on my coaching session. So tell me what that was like, and how we got to the conclusion that we got to.
Yeah.
And really, there was this very, very important piece of advice that you gave me that I want to talk about today. And this is another way of doing the refuting exercise when you have identified the negative thoughts, the bugs or the ants. And it's how you deal with them, particularly if someone else is involved in the thought that you're having.
Okay, so I love this whole conversation and the fact that you have come out and said, yeah, how I coached you. And that is the key. I have a coach. You have a coach. We all have coaches, because why do we need those? It's because a lot of times we can't see what others can see, right? We are so stuck in our identity that we can't notice what's going on. Why are we not being able to make the decisions, the actions, and getting the outcomes that Joy was talking about with Dr. Shannon's program? And Einstein said you can't solve a problem at the same level it was created. Well, that's because you can't get to the questions that are above unless you get higher in your level, the beliefs that you had, because you're going to keep asking the same questions because you have those beliefs. So in working with you, it's so awesome because you're so logically based, right? You have this very logical sense about you. You want to see, where is this coming from? Show me the proof. Left brain, left brain, left brain. And what I love about what Dr. Shannon has done and the mind matrix and how you've incorporated that into what you're delivering your students is that there's a point where you have to realize, if 95% of what you do every day is habit based, it's running subconsciously, then you have to realize that your logical brain is not in charge, your subconscious is, which means that, as you mentioned, you get to a point where it's like, oh, why aren't things happening faster? And why am I regressing when I should be moving forward? And then you start looking around and you say, well, gosh, she's doing it. He's doing it. Why isn't it happening for me? And the concept of ants, I remember first learning about it at school during psychology, and it always was really interesting to me how automated negative thoughts, keep coming up. And I thought to myself, for me, it's almost like, when you see an ant in the kitchen and then you go to bed and you're like, ah, it's fine. And you wake up in the morning and there's like these black strips all over your kitchen and you're like, exterminator time. Well, it came out that as I heard, and this is why I ended up taking Dr. Shannon's year-long program, even though I had been with my belief blasters, I have a 5-step process. I always was fascinated with the neuroscience behind it. And Dr. Shannon is, a PhD in, I think it's neuropsychology. And the way that, she explained it, I said during one of our classes, it like rang. It was like this loud bell going off in my head. I'm like, I have the mind matrix now, and I can bookend it with my belief blasters. And this is how people can go about really, truly, as a business leader, how they can get to those highest levels. And I've seen this and what I found fascinating with you is that when we first started talking, you were saying, well, are there, different levels? Because, you do get caught up as you move up in success, that there are levels. And yes, many times they have to do with certain levels financially. But guess what those really are? Those are levels in your limiting beliefs. That's because you think that there is this, and most of us do. We have these levels that happen at certain increments of our business's success that say, whoa, push you back, push you back, push you back. You're not good enough to run a company that size, producing that much revenue. No, you're much more comfortable here. And as I started to look at, in working with you, what's awesome about you is, yes, you're logically based, but you're also so open to gaining more knowledge around being a better leader. And when you look at the different areas of leadership and you think about leadership going from lead generation and then being able to convert, and then going into marketing that converts to sales, that goes into, once you have the sales, then you have the money. What do you do with the money? That gets into your leadership, hiring, becoming that leader. There are milestones along the way in each category. And there's a foundation that you have to know at each level. And to bypass them, all of a sudden you get what we've heard about, that imposter syndrome where it's like, gosh, I really don't know the foundation, that core. And when you start to go into panic mode about what you don't know, that's where limiting beliefs surface. And they're triggered by that. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't really know. And trust me, this was me as I ran some of my companies and I didn't have a business background in college. And all of a sudden I'm raising millions, $10 million for, a company. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even have that experience. But what you do is that, and this is what you do, is when you don't know something, you raise your hand and you say, I'm going to learn it. Because the worst is when you don't know something and you try to pretend you do. That's when it gets into trouble. But when you say, all right, you know what? This is starting to resonate. I'm getting resistance a lot around this. That's when you need to look at your bug, your belief underground, and you need to say, I'm not taking it anymore. I'm going to do something about it. And whether it's taking courses, whether it's getting a coach in that specific area so that you can move faster through the process, that's what you're so brilliant with. Where it's like, wait a second, I don't know it. But I'm going to learn it. And you're smart enough. I say a smart, savvy CEO, that you don't waste time kicking it around, trying to, I say, jump over the wall instead of, let's just blow that wall up because it's going to be there again, in another half a mile up,
Yeah.
and it'll even be bigger.
No, that's so true. And I think, one of the things that Dr. Shannon always says is when you feel that resistance, you're moving in the right direction. Like if you don't feel
Mm.
resistance, then that's probably a sign you're not pushing yourself enough. And she's always about the epic, audacious goal. Like that's her thing. What's your goal? Okay, what's your epic, audacious goal? Which is like what we call the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. But I think one of the interesting things is my history. You and I've worked together, quite a bit over the last year, but my history prior to this past year has been a real story of self-sabotage, and I can
Mm.
point to several times in my life where I was on the cusp of making it and then literally self-sabotaged it. So when I was on the United States archery team, I missed out on the uh, Olympic team. I missed out on the World Championships team. I missed out. I mean, and in some cases by mere points. And I remember missing out. On the indoor world team by like 5 points or 20 points or something ridiculously small. And I missed out on being the national champion by like 3 points. And when you have those experiences, you kind of go, and it happens over and over again, and you just think, well, I'm doing everything right. I've got my coach. I'm training every day. What in the world is going on? And one of the things that you helped me to identify, and you told me to read The Big Leap. You said, Joy, I think if you read The Big Leap, something's gonna resonate in there for you. And I did that. So between our calls, I went and I listened to The Big Leap, which I highly recommend everyone listen to. It's brilliant. And he talked about the person that's afraid to shine, and the person who's afraid to outshine others because they might make someone feel bad, because they're shining. And it was really interesting because we got back on the call, and I said, okay, I read the book. And I said, and I know exactly why you wanted me to read the book, because I know exactly what my problem is. And it was like a light bulb went off, and it was just, and I won't go into all the details here, but there's a part of my past where I must have made the decision not to shine. And I've always done quite, I've always worked hard. I've always done quite well. I made it onto the United States archery team. I lived at the Olympic Training Center. I trained with the best coaches and the best athletes in the world. I was really high up in my class, not top of my class, but again, always there, but not quite there, and but I always wanted to be there. I always wanted to be at the top. But I always, right before I got to the top, I would kind of stop. And so interestingly enough, you helped me to identify a couple situations in my past where I subconsciously decided I was not going to shine. And that had a huge impact. And now looking at it, I was like, it makes so much sense. And what we did was an exercise where you helped me to basically speak to that person, where I didn't actually speak to them in real life, but I wrote them a letter. And so tell us about that process, and then why that works for you and how someone can do that. Because I know with my own students, there are points in time where someone has said something to them or has done something to them. It has been one sentence, one moment in time, and it shatters the next 10 to 20 years of their ability to move forwards in life because of this one comment that they can never let go. And it sits in their subconscious as, this is who I am. This becomes a belief of, I can't shine, because if I shine, I'll bring other people will be upset, or whatever that thought is. So tell me that process, and I'll tell you what, it worked. It worked so well. It was the best process I could ever do. So thank you for that.
Ah, that is awesome. But I want to also mention to everyone, because a lot of times people hear, like, well, wait a second, fear of being too successful. Like, really? Ha ha ha. Well, here's the thing, it's actually quite common. And it goes back to, if you think about after post-war days, this was our grandparents who raised their kids. There was this conservative mindset of, you can't have too much, we might lose it, you got to keep it. And so that actually DNA wise passed down. It's a thing. And so there are quite a few people that I work with that, much like Olympic athletes, or huge, Ironman, 5 times over, 10 times over, people that have sold their company for 200 million and are still feeling like, yikes, what am I going to do? And it really doesn't matter if you're just starting your business or if you're at the point where you're scaling and growing your business. This is deep seated. This is in that subconscious brain. And so when I hear Joy saying she was missing out by 5 points, by 3 points, it was always almost in her hands. It was almost there, and then it wasn't. And then she said it was there, but then not quite there. And this is all about like that she was, your thoughts become your reality tomorrow. And so as she was going through this, I was listening to that, hearing her continue to say, almost there, almost there. And it was like, why are you almost there, but not there? What's really standing in your way? And it was this idea around, well, wait a second, I don't want to outshine. So if your belief is that you don't want to outshine, what are you going to do? You're going to get almost there. Yeah. Number two, because your family, your friends, everyone, that's not outshining anyone because you're not there. Oh, so sad you didn't make it. Not, wow, you made it. You were second. Nuh-uh. No. So she was okay with that. But as soon as we were able to, as I say, flip the script and go through kind of the mind matrix plus the belief blasters, my process, the 5 steps are really, you got to realize that you have it. She did. She knew it. She knew exactly what the belief was.
But I
Then
didn't know it until I worked with you, Hilary. I think it's really important to know that this impacted me 20 years ago. When I was on the US archery team, that was 20 years ago. That was a long time ago, right? I mean, it feels like forever ago.
These bugs go deep.
But the incident that we were able to uncover actually happened to me when I was in 7th grade. So I was 13 years old. I was in a classroom and there was another top student. I was one of the top students, not the top student though. Let's just be clear. I was one of the top.
Because she's second. Because she's second. She's not going to shine.
I was second. And anyway, I might've been 9th, but I was okay with 9th. But the point was I was, out of the whole high school, that's where I was. And I was totally okay with top 10, but there was a part of me that, was obviously I knew how much work it was going to take to be number 1, but so I now wanted a social life. But anyway, now I'm just giving excuses. But here's the deal. This gal and I were always competing, at being the best. And I had won all of these awards that she had been up for. So there was like a series of 5 awards you could get. And I won, I swept them. I got 4 of them. It was like language and this and that. And anyway, I won these awards and I was really embarrassed going and getting the awards because I kept getting called up and kept getting called up and kept getting called up in front of the whole school. And then we ended up in a class and we were waiting for the class to start. And just in front of everybody, she just laid into me and she made fun of me in front of everyone. And it was all the awards that clearly she had wanted to win and clearly didn't win because we were always up for the same awards. And I don't even know what she said. I just, this is one of those Maya Angelou moments. I don't know what she said, but I know how she made me feel. I remember the room, the ceiling was an asbestos room. I mean, I can remember every part of this scene, but I'd forgotten about it completely until I read the book that you told me to read. And until you helped me uncover this, kind of fear of shining or, worry about shining. And man, oh man, it just came flooding back. And it was very interesting because recently I had a student who I did a hot seat with, and about 3 days after the hot seat, she messaged me and she said, "You're never going to believe this. I had this conversation where this person said this one thing to me in the kitchen." She's like, "I totally forgot about it. And it just came flooding back and just, I can't get it out of my head." And I said, "I know exactly how you feel. That's what happened to me." And it's like, wow, it's like that moment comes back. You can relive it. You know what you were, you know what it smelled like, you know what it looks like, you know what it felt like. And so you gave me some great advice. What did you tell me to do to this person?
So first you recognized it. That was a big aha. Then you had to redefine it, because you do have to sit there and say, all right, there are, you've had so much successes. We just had to make sure that you realize that. Then this is where the key, you have to reflect on it. And where Dr. Shannon in the Mind Matrix has this awesome part where you can mirror yourself and mirror what you're feeling onto somebody else. I give my students an option to do either the mirroring, or they can, if they can remember the actual time or the person who said, made you feel, you could remember that, exactly what happened. You can write a letter, and it's actually like forgiving them of what they did and what they didn't know, right? Because you took it on from that point as a belief, as a limiting belief. But when she was saying it because that's how she was feeling. It had nothing to do with you, but then you grabbed it. You held it, you took it, you ran with it just like you do. And you're like, I'm going for that, goal. And you went. And here it is, like you said, years later. So what you do is you acknowledge the fact that, hey, this is what you said. I know that this is not my belief. This is your belief. This is what you were saying. And I know that this was really a reflection of you, not me. And then you literally say, and now I'm willing to let it go. And it's this emotional, like, oh my God, you're forgiving that person because it was them, right? We talk about being 100% responsible for yourself. You know that what somebody else is saying to you is not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them. So you ended up writing a letter. You don't send it to them. Don't worry, that's not part of the process, but you do read it, and you read it out loud and you hear it. And at that point, it's like firing off in your brain in so many different places, but it's acknowledging. Now, you could do this as Joy did, or you could do it. Let's say you remember hearing your dad as a kid say, money doesn't grow on trees, limiting belief, limiting belief. You could write a letter to your dad saying, you know what, Dad, I understand that during the time when you were growing up, you believe that money doesn't grow on trees and you have to work hard, and then you can play hard, or, you got to work like, we always hear till your eyes bleed, whatever the story is. And you acknowledge that that's your belief. And you know what? It's your belief. And I'm not judging you, because that's the thing. This is a non-judgmental. It's just merely saying your belief, not my belief. I'm not willing to carry that belief anymore. I'm wiping the slate clean. I'm acknowledging that it's not mine. It came from this situation. It came from me hearing that over the years. And then you let it go. You let it go. This is not some big process that needs, years and years and years of work. You don't. From that point, what you do then is you rewrite. What do you want to believe? What do you want? And what now are you believing? What do you believe about yourself now?
Me.
Me? Yeah. What do you believe?
Oh no,
What do
no.
you believe, girl?
Well,
Yeah.
it was liberating. And I think one of the things that happened as well, I mean, I was also, I always love looking at other people's coaching programs and learning from different people. So I also did TCP, Jim Fortin very well.
Adore
So
him.
I love his perspective. He's got such a different perspective from everyone else. But one of the things that I was learning around the same time was, I think it's like the 7 different perspectives, right? So most people only look at a situation and they think 1 or 2 perspectives. Like, so you could look at the way that person treated me and you can say, okay, they treated me that way because, maybe things were bad at home and they needed to take it out on somebody. And then what Jim would say is, okay, give me another perspective. And it's like, okay, they treated me that way because, they wanted to win the awards. They didn't win the awards. Okay, give me another perspective. And, to come up with 7 different perspectives on something, or even 5, it gets harder and harder and harder. And I think that the piece of the exercise is you don't know what's going on in somebody else's life. And like you said, hurt people hurt people. So, that's one of the biggest lessons I think probably ever had in my life, is that concept that a hurt person is going to hurt somebody else. That's why they say it. It's because nothing to do with you. It has to do with them. And I think once you really start to understand that, it's mega. And I just remember writing that letter, and I just burst into tears. You're shaking, because you're letting go of something that your subconscious has literally held on to for, in my case, for 27 years. And I didn't even know it. So I think when you say, how do I feel now? I feel liberated. And here's the thing, and this is what I love. Okay, this is what I love. When you tackle these ants and these bugs and you get to the bottom of them and you do the work, and the work is painful, but you've got to do the work. When you do the work, that's when the breakthroughs happen, and someone said, and it might've been Dr. Shannon, you got to break down before you break through, something like that. I don't remember what the terminology is, but what I do think happened to me was by recognizing that I was afraid to shine, or not even afraid to shine, but I was holding myself back because I didn't want to outshine others. I think that's really the case. I didn't want to outshine others. I didn't want to make other people feel bad. By kind of writing this letter, and then what you told me to do was have her write an apology back to me. So I did that. She wrote me an apology back. And, and I read it and I was like, okay, so she's, I've forgiven her. She's apologized to me. Of course, she didn't actually do this in real life. She doesn't, unless she listens to the podcast, she doesn't even know that it's still an issue, but which I doubt she does. But the point is that I wrote her the letter. She wrote the letter back to me. And here's the magical part. Here's the magical part. I then was liberated. I then gave myself permission to shine. And it was not long after that, and I think this is a great time to bring this in, but it was not long after that Jamie Kern-Lima wrote her book, Believe It. I don't know if you've read it yet. I haven't read it yet. I couldn't put it down. I went on a 4-hour walk just so I could listen to the end of it. It was that good. But Jamie Kern-Lima, she wrote the book, Believe It. And it's just come out, and it was like, it's a total blockbuster. But what she built the business, It Cosmetics, and she sold it to L'Oreal for over $1 billion. And the crazy thing about this story is that she was also the first female CEO for a L'Oreal company, because prior to that, in the 100-year history of L'Oreal, they'd never had, imagine this, right? L'Oreal is a company that sells to women, and in its 100-year history, it had never had a female CEO. What is that about, right? So anyway, this book, oh my goodness, everything about this book was so good. But so right after I have this like liberation moment where I'm like, I'm going to shine, baby. I even wanted to change we have a hashtag every year. And, the first hashtag we had was bring back the sparkle. And then it got hijacked by oven cleaners and jewelry cleaners. And then ours was Sparkle and Thrive, which did end up turning into our podcast, which I love the name of that. So I've left that. And then we've been Be Brave and Sparkle for a while now. Like it's been a big deal, to be brave and just be bold, go for the big dream. And anyway, as soon as I had this huge breakthrough and listened to this book, I'm like, right, that's it. Our new hashtag's gonna be like sparkle and shine or something like that. But I'm sure that's also taken over by an oven cleaner.
But more importantly, listen to how you're even talking right now. It's like, yeah, there are no barriers anymore. There are no, you are on the path. Your North Star is there. Like you talk about shine, your star is shining so bright. And with that, because now you believe that this is 100% possible for you, it's now all about just following into the questions you're going to ask, like Dr. Shannon says, and the actions you're going to take, and you'll see the results.
But the clarity that comes, it's almost like, going back to that song that we sang when we were kids, hide it under a bushel. No, I'm going to let it shine. Hide it under.
Oh, I love that. But let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Is when you are hiding your light, right? There's two things that happen. One, you don't have the clarity. You can't see. This is like the perfect analogy. If you're hiding your light, if you stop shining, you can't see. And that was what was happening to me, was the solutions I needed to get the business to the next level, to level up and be the number one, not the number two, the solutions that I needed, I was never going to see them if I didn't let my light shine, because it's only by putting the light out there that you start to see the solutions. So anyway, this is the book, and this is what she says. And this is where I can't even tell you, I have pictures of me like right after I read this, and I wrote in my journal exactly, what I was going to do. And it just really, it was amazing. And on the way back from this walk, it was an epic walk. I ran for 10K out to this abbey, which was very, spiritual place in and of itself, right? Because it's an abbey. And then I get to the abbey and I'm like, I'm just going to walk really slowly back. So it was a 17-kilometer outing, which is like a 10-mile outing. And the crazy thing is on my way back, I kid you not, I saw a kingfisher. I've never seen a kingfisher in my life. I've been dying to see one. And then, and the kingfisher, and I'm also, again, because of Jim introducing kind of spiritual animals and animal totems, something I had really not known much about before. I looked it up, and the kingfisher is a long time symbol of peace and prosperity. And when I saw that and I looked it up, and what I wrote down after I finished Jamie's book was everything is going to be all right. And it was so liberating. Anyway, what she said was, your victory is her victory. Your strength is her strength. Sometimes someone else has to see your win to believe it's possible for herself. Next time you have a win or something great happens to you, whether it is big or small, share it and celebrate it with others. Do it bravely and confidently. Don't be tempted to keep it to yourself so you don't make other people feel bad or uncomfortable. God made you with a light inside of you, destined to shine. You are worthy of using your voice, of knowing the answer, of shining your light so brightly that it illuminates the world. Don't dim your light ever, because when you dim yours, you dim hers. Believe in the power of letting your light shine. Her future and yours depends on it.
Is that not like she's talking to you?
I
mean, how awesome. She's actually talking to all of us, right? But more specifically, that is like when you think about the kingfisher and when you talk about peace and prosperity, what's come with all of this awakening is a peace in your life. And when you found the peace, prosperity is right behind it.
Well, and you ready for this? So I'm walking home. I'm in the last part of the walk, right? The very last stretch of the river. So we live in Oxford and there's a river and you go running. I go running along the same river every single day because we can't go anywhere else, but I go along that river and every day I see something different. I see all sorts of different birds. Anyway, I'm walking back and this has never happened to me either. And I actually filmed it because I was like, I can't believe this has happened to me. A swan comes right alongside me and goes for 10 minutes. It gets me all the way back to the bridge to my house. And so I also then thought, well, I got to look up the swan as well. And the swan, it said the white swan symbolism is related to light, grace, beauty, love, and purity. And and it says, if a swan glides into your path, she will help show you to find new ways of thinking, breathing, and going with the flow. She asks that you accept your ability to know what lies ahead. Be sure to pay attention to your feminine intuition, hunches, and instincts. Remember, this is crazy. Remember your inner grace and inner beauty. Let it shine forth for those around to see. I think there might have been a message coming through, but I'm just gonna.
You think there's a message? It's there for you with 10 minutes while you're doing your walk run. Come on, it's so great.
But I have to say, I have to credit you because I've had so many different breakthroughs with different coaches, but this breakthrough on, kind of conquering this fear of success was such a huge one because it's been a shadow of mine for so long. So I want to thank you. And I really wanted to bring you onto the podcast because I wanted people to hear, it's important that you have coaching. It's important that you have someone who helps you and guides you. And I am one who completely believes in random serendipity, chance, that, everything happens for a reason. And when I say serendipity, random, and chance. I mean, I did not pick to be in the same cohort for Dr. Shannon as Hilary. And we didn't even pick to be partners. I think it was like we were the last two standing. No one had picked us. So we found each
So
other
funny.
and able to help each other. But I have to say, I'm just hugely thankful for your friendship, thankful for your coaching, thankful for your.
Oh, you're so awesome. And I love that there is a star behind your head right now. What I'm looking at, I don't know if other people can see what I'm looking at. It's like this big star. And there's just no doubt. I mean, this is just going to be so exciting to watch over the next 12 months, how you're going to shine.
But it's so important. And I think this is how, and we can wrap up here, it's important to squash the ants. It's important to squash the bugs. It's so important. And my bug, my ant is not going to be your bug, your ant. We all have our own bugs, our own ants. We all have those same girls in 7th grade who said the mean thing, but it might be something totally different. Or you might have the dad or the, aunt or the, the grandparent that, says something, that just you carry with you in your life. And I think what we're trying to say today is, if you're listening to this and that story has come up for you, do this exercise that Hilary suggests. Write them a letter. Don't give it to them, but just write them a letter and forgive them. Let it go. And if you feel like you want to write an apology back, go for it. I found both of those exercises to be really, really powerful. And that will give you that liberation and that freedom, and I would also recommend very highly, I don't know if you've seen it, Hilary, there's a great video on YouTube called Forgive Assholes. So if you haven't seen that, I would also highly recommend you watch the Forgive Assholes video. It's only 2 minutes long, but it's perfect.
Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah.
That is so great.
Thank you so much for coming on to our podcast and shining a light on the topic of, fear of success and self-sabotage. Something that I think a lot of female entrepreneurs, as they work their way up and become more and more successful, they're just going to have to face. And you've got to face your own demons and strike them down, and so you can move forwards.
And definitely, I think, you are you're so willing to hear the messages. And that's what if we can just open ourselves up to realize that we have the bugs, we have ants, we've got these things. And then you have these coaches in your life that you can count on, whether it's Dr. Shannon, and I lean heavily into Dr. John Gray, and he goes way more into detail around like other ways to do like deep letters and all that. But I think you really do find your way, that something clicks where you remember something and you take it through the process, you take it all the way through, you give yourself a chance, you put you first, and then it just opens up. It does. Your life will open up.
And where can people find you if they want to follow you and listen to you and learn from you?
So I too have a podcast. It's called The Silver Lined Relaunch. And you can also find me at therelaunchco.com and the Relaunch Co on Instagram.
Wonderful. Thank you so
You're
much.
awesome. Thank you.